Hey, this is Gavin Palmer. Welcome back to our channel. The topic that I've been interested in for a long time is error correction. Error correction is this process by which we do learning and teaching. And this is nested to, my faith, right? And what's interesting about error correction is that it could be nested to everyone's faith. Now, I use this word faith, and I know that can be confusing. And so maybe I can help improve your understanding of my use of this word faith. And so the way I'm using the word faith, it can be understood as trust or confidence in various aspects of life, such as relationships, government, self, and the inherent goodness of humanity. So this is what I mean by faith. And, among the people on YouTube and people who receive a lot of attention by others, there is a kind of faith. There's a reason why people go to those and and pay attention to those individuals. And there's a reason why you might be paying attention to me. And it has something to do with faith. And so my faith has to do with error correction as a foundation. But more specifically, my faith has to do with the proper use of technology such that small groups of humans can innovate and be productive, providing goods and services for the benefit of all, where error correction is a necessary component. So that's my faith. That's where I put most of my faith. Now, if I want to produce as much good fruit as possible, I have to account for all the different kinds of faith that people have. And one of the roles, when we start talking about faith, is the role of the pastor or the shepherd. And so a pastor or a shepherd will have a flock. And so these YouTube stars or personalities where people are paying attention, all of those people who are paying attention are like the flock, are like the sheep. And, some of you are going to be stronger than others. You all have, everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And a pastor who's trying to look out for their flock will behave in certain ways. And one of the things a pastor will tend to do, especially as they, specify their faith and develop a flock of people who share the same faith, is that the pastor will try to, build up that foundation and will attempt to avoid undermining it. And so what that does is it creates situations where people who have different faith will be seen as predators to each other, right? So now we've got the third role. So you've got the shepherds, you've got sheep, and you've got predators. And what's interesting to me is that each shepherd and even the sheep can be seen as a predator from the perspective of a different faith group with different shepherds and sheep. And what I've noticed is that I can be perceived, and people like me can be perceived as a predator to every faith group in the world. It doesn't matter what faith group it is. If I come in and I start trying to help with the error correction process by which the group can organize better, then I can be perceived as a predator who is threatening the very foundation of their faith, the very foundation of the goal of the shepherd for that flock of sheep. And then among Among the strategies used by shepherds, we have these things like advertising, marketing, networking, and public relations. And that's where the shepherd can be concerned for their own reputation, because if their reputation is somehow attacked or reduced, it could then cause damage, or at least from the mind of the shepherd who has a flock of sheep, that could cause damage to individuals within the flock who have their faith shaken, have their faith undermined. And so this is where there's a very big conflict of interest, is between people like myself interested in error correction and people who are like the shepherd with a position of power and influence within a flock, who are concerned with public relations and networking and advertising and marketing, who want to preserve their reputation. And so we have to, what I have to do is try to encourage, and this is what, if you are on board with the importance of error correction across all domains of faith, that's where we have to really figure out our own messaging, right? We actually have to figure out how we can reframe error correction, right? And this is, people have done it. So that's what I'm working with, and it's a hard problem, and I haven't seen people doing it well, and I haven't learned how to do it well. And I worry that the problem is so hard that it can't be solved. And this is just something we have to be aware of. We have to be aware of just the world we're in, such that we can try to navigate the weather, right? So if you're a shepherd with a flock, we have to be able to adapt to the weather, to the climate, to the environment. And it seems that we are in an environment with these truths about shepherds, sheep, and predators across many domains of faith. We have to understand the conflicts of interest and, these bad incentives which will cause shepherds and sheep to avoid learning. That's what we have to remember. That's what we have to be aware of. And then we have to learn how to be patient and gentle, such that we can communicate better, so that we aren't seen as a predator that is only interested in error correction, that will sacrifice other people's interests and goals for the error correction. So, and the question in my mind is can we do it? Because the positions of power within a domain where there are sheep, those positions of power are attractive to people who have selfish goals, and there are strategies that they can use, dishonest strategies they can use to maintain their power. So that's what we're working against, is we're working against those forces where the shepherds and the pastors care about their reputation, and I would say are even justified in caring about their reputation. And so how do we do error correction? How do those shepherds do error correction while looking out for their flock? So I would encourage every shepherd to try to learn how to do error correction and to do it in a way which is maximally beneficial to the flock. And then I would also encourage a means by which we can identify bad shepherds. Shepherds who don't do error correction. So it's something we should probably keep track of. And so that we can, be as beneficial as possible by selecting the right shepherds. Becoming the best shepherds and selecting the best shepherds. That's really what this comes down to in the end. So that's what's weighing on my mind. That's what I'm wrestling with. Let me know what you think.